Hi, guys. My name is Brooke, and I would love to share with you today. I wanted to ask you first, have any of you ever moved neighborhoods? What about cities or even countries? So, when I was growing up, my family moved a lot. You can probably hear in my accent that I was born in the United States. I was born in Florida. Then we lived on a boat for the first year and a half in the Caribbean. Then back to Florida. Then to Oklahoma, this U.S. state just north of Texas. Then to Canada for 5 years, where my parents were both from, in 3 different houses. And then back to Florida, all before I was 10 years old. In those growing up years of my life, I lived in 9 different houses, went to 6 different schools, in 2 countries and 2 states. Now, that's a lot of change. I hope you haven't had to go through as much as I did. But with each new place, what I learned is that there are different ways of life, different ways of thinking, culture, and even though all the places that I lived spoke English, even there are different accents, different words for things, or even spelling. British English in Canada versus American English, of course. So to really understand a place, what I learned is you really need to live there. You can't just visit. And this is the reason that I believe why when God's messengers, people that we call the prophets from the Old Testament, weren't being listened to by God's people, the people of Israel, God decided to try a different strategy. He sent them his very own son, Jesus. The Bible said that Jesus moved into the neighborhood. God took on human flesh and just moved right in, not only to be known by the people, but for his people to get to know him as well. In Young Life, we believe that Jesus is the most amazing person to ever walk the earth. He was the God-man, sent here with a purpose, fulfilling all the prophecies that were written about him hundreds of years before he was born in a little town of Bethlehem, really to showcase God's personal love for each one of us. In Young Life, we believe that as we learn about Jesus, we learn about God, both through his teachings that help us learn how to live the original design that God created mankind with, as well as through some of the things he did, miracles that show God's care and concern for hurting people. Some stories you may have heard before, others may be new, but I hope that you will see your own life in them and through them. Jesus is like a mirror into God's heart. We can't see God. Nobody can see him with your natural eyes. But in Jesus' life, as we learn about his life, the things that he said and did, how he lived, we do see God reflected. We read, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." There's one story I'd like to leave you with that shows Jesus' heart and God's love for people just like you. This story took place right at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, and it's the second miracle that he performed after coming from Judea to Galilee, moving into the neighborhood and revealing who he was. So it says, once more, he visited Cana in Galilee, where he had turned the water into wine. This was Jesus' very first miracle, where he saved a party from disaster when they ran out of wine. It would have been so humiliating for the family. Here, there was a royal official whose son lay sick at Capernaum. When this man heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, he went to him and he begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death. You must imagine that a royal official is not used to beg. He must have been pretty desperate. Have you ever seen government officials doing such things? And here's what Jesus says. He says, "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you will never believe." The royal official said, "Sir, calm down before my child dies." "Go," Jesus replied. "Your son will live." The man took Jesus at his word and departed. While he was still on his way, his servants met him with the news that his boy was living. When he inquired as to the time that his son got better, they said to him, "Yesterday at 1 p.m, the fever left him." Then the father realized it was the exact time at which Jesus had said to him, "Your son will live." So he and his whole household believed. What is the desire of your heart? Do you believe that God cares enough to answer it? Have you ever asked him? Jesus cares about people and can heal. And this story reveals God's heart of love for his people, for you.